So Max Verstappen believes that Red Bull needs to find more speed from their car after narrowly avoiding a Ferrari challenge in the Canadian Grand Prix. Red Bull won a close battle with their main rivals at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve after Verstappen held off pressure from Carlos Sainz Jr. in the final laps. It was a tough race. I expected to have a little bit more pace, but we seemed to lack a little bit compared to Carlos. That's of course the only one I could compare to with the Ferrari, and it was a bit more difficult than I expected. Now, following a rain-affected qualifying session, Verstappen took the lead for the second time this year. Ferrari's points leader Charles Leclerc had a hampered race after starting 19th due to penalties for exceeding his allocation of power unit components. And in the championship, he's now fallen 49 points behind Verstappen. The Dutchman's nearest rival is teammate Sergio Perez, who's 46 points behind him. Verstappen, however, believes Ferrari has the speed to catch them in the remaining 13 races. It's still a very long way, and I know the gap of course is quite big, but I also know that I can switch around very quickly. I mean, at race 3, I was 46 behind. So we just need to stay calm, we need to focus, we need to improve, because today we were not the quickest. It swings a bit. Like last weekend, it looked good in the race. Now it didn't look as good, but we still managed to win, and that I think is also a quality. We just have to work together with the whole team to try and just find little improvements in the car. Now, Red Bull's biggest concern, like Ferrari's, has been their reliability rather than performance. Now, according to F1 World Champion Mika Häkkinen, Red Bull's lead could be shattered if their reliability issues aren't addressed soon, especially after Sergio Perez was forced to retire from the Canadian GP due to a mechanical issue. The only problem for Red Bull appears to be reliability. Once again, we saw an issue in the race for Checo Perez. That must have made the team nervous, on a day when Max really needed to take advantage of title rival Charles Leclerc starting from the back of the grid, so the great result would have been a relief for them. Reliability seems to be the only thing Max, Checo and the team need to worry about. Häkkinen believes Ferrari can still pose a challenge, but admits that they too are concerned about reliability. Ferrari has a quick car, but it's fragile. Team boss Mattia Binotto is right to say that it's better to have a fast car with some reliability issues than a slow car which finishes. If the team can get on top of their reliability problems, Charles and Carlos Sainz can definitely challenge Red Bull again, although that 49-point gap between Max and Charles is not going to be easy to close down. Not only do Ferrari need to win some races, they also need Max to hit trouble. Verstappen's fortunes have improved dramatically this year. He was 45 points behind Ferrari rival Charles Leclerc after 2 DNFs in the first 3 races, only to enjoy a massive swing in the period since Australia. But like Häkkinen, Red Bull chief advisor Helmut Marko urged caution over Verstappen's lead, noting how quickly things can change in F1, but was encouraged by the team's recent form and winning streak. The main thing is you have to finish and avoid those reliability things. We also had a sprint race which helped us a lot to get more points. We have an unbelievable run now. Normally in the first half of the season, we were always catching up and now are dominating. You have to say that if you win 7 races out of the first 9, that is domination. So Red Bull has had its best start to an F1 season since 2011, when Sebastian Vettel won 6 of the first 8 races on his way to a dominant victory in both championships. But Marko is the first to admit that Red Bull has had some reliability issues in the early part of the year. Reliability is always a concern if you have a car that is so much on the limit. You see that at Ferrari. The only ones who don't have a technical DNF yet is Mercedes, but they had to lift during some races because of overheating problems. Now, following requests from a number of drivers, including Mercedes duo George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, for the FIA to assist in addressing extreme bouncing on safety grounds, the governing body acted ahead of the Canadian Grand Prix. It issued a technical directive outlining plans to implement a vertical oscillating metric that would force teams to limit car bouncing or risk having to raise ride height. Furthermore, teams were supposed to be allowed to take additional measures to strengthen their floors, such as adding a second floor stay. However, while the FIA's response caused concern because it did not strictly adhere to the correct procedures, the planned bouncing limit for later in the year could be detrimental to Mercedes, because it's becoming clear that the W13 needs to run very low to the ground in order to deliver its maximum performance potential. It's more likely to require FIA intervention if it continues to hit the ground. That is why Marko, whose Red Bull team does not believe the FIA should intervene, believes Mercedes will suffer as a result of what's occurred. In an interview, Marko stated that the FIA threat of forcing the worst affected teams to lift their cars was exactly what could hurt Mercedes the most. That's why he suggested that the Mercedes' efforts to involve the FIA had the opposite effect to what the German manufacturer desired. In German we say der Schuss ging nach hinten los, so it's basically backfired for Mercedes. Marco added that the FIA should stay out of the porpoising debate because the phenomenon does not affect every team. I fully agree with Max, it's not correct to change something like this during the season. It can't be the FIA who's making our setups. Changing the ride height means changing the setup, and the FIA can't do that. My next point is that all of this is the result of one team having problems. That team should just sort out their own problems and not affect the other teams. However, it's not only bad news for Mercedes. The Silver Arrows, along with Williams, stand to benefit the most from the suspension of Formula One's aerodynamic testing restrictions for the second half of the season. Now, Mercedes and Williams are 2 positions lower in the Constructors' Championship at the halfway point of the 2022 season than they were at the end of the previous season. This means Mercedes will increase from 70 to 80% of the aerodynamic testing limit governing wind tunnel and CFD use in the first half of the year. And this is based on the ATR rules set out in Appendix 7 of the sporting regulations. The ATR is a handicap system that limits the wind tunnel and CFD testing of the most successful teams in comparison to the less successful teams. The nominal allowance is allocated to each team in 5% increments based on the Constructors' Championship position. The year is divided into 6 aerodynamic testing periods, 3 in the first and 3 in the second half. The 4th period begins in early July with allocations reset on June 30th based on Constructor Championship position. Because that's before the season's next race at Silverstone. The Constructors' Championship positions at the end of last weekend's Canadian Grand Prix are used to reset the standings. While Mercedes benefits, title rivals Red Bull and Ferrari see their allocations reduce. They're both 1 place higher in the championship than they were at the end of last year, with a 5% drop. This means that while Mercedes may have miscalculated the impact of the FIA's technical directive, they still have a massive opportunity on their hands. And if Canada wasn't a fluke, we might see a silver-coloured car fighting for first place sooner than expected. While team principal Toto Wolff agreed that things were a little better at the event, he believes that there is still a lot more work to be done to put his drivers in the same zone as the leaders, so the extra testing will help with that. You could see at the hairpin they put in new asphalt, so we suffer less from the stiffness of the car, which is the main problem. But before the safety car came out at the end, we were actually quicker than Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen, but you're picking out a few laps and saying, yeah, we're back, but I don't think that's the case here. We just need to keep working. So, what are your thoughts on Red Bull's championship so far? Do you believe their reliability issues will eventually catch up with them, or do Ferrari's issues offset that? What about Mercedes? Will a new player enter the fray, or will the FIA's new technical directives stymie their progress? We'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.